Water changes are extremely important for a reef tank, and a lot of people are split on if you should even do water changes and how often. So today, we need to do a water change on our very dirty 15-gallon Hello Reef tank, and I'm going to take you guys along and show you some tips and tricks and what we do when we do water changes on the aquariums. As always, be sure to check out the Reef Bay app if you guys want to get into some parameter tracking. There's also a marketplace and a feed where you can connect with other reefers. So this tank has been set up for about 2-ish months now, and as you guys can see, we still have some diatoms on the sand bed, which is no problem. They are starting to fizzle out, so we are planning on getting some coral here soon. So we want to get the tank nice and clean and do a water change and get in there, maybe scrub the rocks just a little bit, and we want to clean off some of those diatoms as well. Now before we do that, let's talk about some of the tools that we use to clean our reef tank. So we've got a nice little 5-gallon bucket here that we keep all of our different cleaning supplies in, and the main things that we use to clean the glass. First one here is this nice little brush. This is a Petco Aqueon. It's like $4. So I've got two of these guys here because eventually the padding does get a little worn out. But these are great at getting off that soft algae on the glass. And then we've got these nice little straight edge metal scrapers here. These are going to get off like any unwanted coralline algae, harder to get spots in the tank. I also use those to kind of level out the sand just a little bit. We also have a couple little mini turkey basters. These are nice to get inside the rocks and kind of clean up and get out any detritus that's sitting on the rocks. And then we also have toothbrushes, which we'll get into a little bit later. If we go over to this bucket, we've got another 5-gallon bucket. Did a small, very small water change on our 12-gallon. But then if we come here, we've got a couple of siphons. So this one is what we'll be using today for the 15-gallon. And then the smaller tanks will usually use this smaller one here. It's nice because if you get inside, you don't really knock around any corals or anything with the smaller gravel vac here. Now you might be wondering, what salt do we use when we do water changes on this aquarium? At the moment, we're using Reef Crystals by Instant Ocean. No particular reason. It's a pretty good salt. It's really obtainable and it's at a decent price, but we are going to be switching over to Brightwell Aquatic Salt, and that should be coming in the next week or two. So we'll do a couple more water changes with the Reef Crystals and then switching over to Brightwell Aquatics. As for the water itself, that's a really important thing, and a lot of people ask, where do you get the water from? We used to buy it from our local fish store, and you can pretty much go there with your jugs and fill it up. For fresh water, it's anywhere from $1 to $2 a gallon. And then for salt water, it can be anywhere from $2 to $3 for a gallon of salt water. So that's what we used to do until we got a small little RODI system from Amazon. I'll put it up on the screen so you guys can check it out. But it's the Smart Buddy RODI system, I believe it's called, and it's at a really good price. It's easy because you can hook it up to your faucet, and it makes about 5 gallons of water in about an hour or so. So I think that's a good option if you're looking to get an RO system. Just make sure you have a TDS meter so you know what your total dissolved solids are, and of course a refractometer so you know what your salinity is at. So again, we've got our salt water off to the side. Before we actually start cleaning the tank, how often do we do water changes? Because again, a lot of people have different opinions on how often you should do it. Should you even do water changes? I used to be on the side of not doing water changes and kind of just letting the tank ride out until you start running into some issues. So my new take on it is that you should do water changes consistent enough so that you are getting some fresh water in there as well as exporting nutrients. And for us on these smaller tanks, it's about once every week now. For the 15-gallon, we do a weekly water change here. And for this 30-gallon over here, we'll do a water change about once every 2 weeks, but we try to be weekly on this tank as well. So depending on the size of the tank, I would say really plays a role in how often you do water changes. So for these nano size and pico size, especially aquariums, I would try to do a water change at least once a week. But if you've got a larger, more stable and mature aquarium, you could probably get away with doing a water change once every 2 weeks or even once a month. But depending on the maturity of your tank as well, that'll also determine how often you should do these water changes. So let's actually get to doing the water change. Now, before I do the actual water change, what I like to do is clean the glass and scrub off any algae. That way, when we actually siphon out water, we can pull some of that algae out. And the way I go about it is I start with the softer algae scraper, and this allows me to just take off this nice little dusty brown algae that's on the glass. One funny thing about these clownfish is they used to not bite, and now every time I put my hand in the tank, they want to bite me. I don't know why. I've never had clownfish that like to bite. I've worked on aquariums where the clownfish are ruthless and they just always seem to want to nip me in the finger. It doesn't hurt, but it's one of those things where if you're not really expecting it, or even if you are expecting it and you're anticipating it, it's kind of like an annoying little, look at that, he's coming up getting PTSD from when I used to work on aquariums for my job. And then I come in here with this metal scraper, and again, this will take off any majority of the hard algae. It's also nice too because it's got such a straight blade at the bottom that I'm able to kind of get in the sand bed here. Now this is the tool that I said I was going to be talking about, is the trusty old toothbrush. You can get a 2-pack for like $1 or $2 from Target. This one I think was like 90 cents. So this is going to be great for getting all of the edges where the silicone beads are, where you don't want to put your metal scraper. And then the other scrubber is a little bit too big, so these nice little bristles will get in the nooks and crannies. You can also use it on the rocks to get off some of that brown algae, and I'll even take it on the power head and make sure I'm cleaning that off as well. So we do have some brown algae that's still on this bead. It'll literally take it right off, so you get that really clean edge. And then this middle rock here, it's a little bit lighter of a color, so you can see more of the algae on it. So we're just gonna go ahead and take our toothbrush and scrape it off. This tank's gonna take, you know, a couple more months to fully mature where we don't have constant algae growing on the tank, but that should be okay. Our parameters are good as long as we're staying consistent with manually removing the algae. It shouldn't be an issue. And lastly, the power head, this will have some stuff stuck in the opening, so it's kind of good to knock off anything that might be stuck in the little inlets back here. We'll get the cord back here, and then we'll even get the return nozzle as well, since sometimes algae will be stuck on that. And just like that, our glass is clean. One thing I do want to state is that the metal scraper here, this is what really polishes up the tank in my opinion. So the brush that we use to get off all of this softer brown algae, that'll get a majority of it off. But this guy right here, for some reason, every time I end up using this and scraping off anything excess, it just makes the tank look a lot more polished. So a lot of people ask, how do you get the glass so clean? I kind of contribute it to this. So I would get yourself a metal scraper. This is again going to take off any remaining algae that you didn't get with the brush, but it's also going to get those hard to take off spots. Pick yourself up one of these. I believe I got this one for like 20 bucks. And then it does have replaceable blades as well, so you can change it out. They do dull over time. You will see the difference on your clarity in the glass. All right, so we don't need this bucket anymore. What we're going to do now before we start draining water out of the tank is we need to go to our very unorganized controls down here, and we're just going to turn the system completely off. This turns off the return pump, this turns off the power head, also turns off the heater if that is an issue, and it turns off the ATO as well. So when you start draining water, you don't want your ATO pumping in fresh water. So we got the system off now. We can do a siphon and a light gravel vac on the sand bed. So we've got our bucket in place down there as well as our gravel vac. Before I actually do this, I want to show you guys how to properly use a gravel vac, because I didn't know how to use one for years. And I got a job working as a service tech in aquariums, and I finally figured out how to actually use a gravel vac, as sad as that is. But I'm going to show you guys how to do it. So without dropping my mic into the bucket, basically just put, obviously, the outlet into your bucket there. What you're going to do, take your gravel vac, in this big part at the bottom, big tube, push all the air out, and then you want to make sure that it's full of water. You pick it up outside of the tank, and that's going to start the gravity fed vacuum, I think is what it's called. But as you guys can see, I'm pinching the tube here with this hand, and that allows me to stop the flow of water for the most part. It's going to drastically cut it down to probably like 5% flow. Open it up, and then you got 100% flow. So pinch it off with one hand so that you're able to kind of control how much water comes out. And that's a big part because we don't want to take off too much from the sand here. We just want to hit it lightly on the top. Pinch it, and you're able to move to the next spot without picking up too much sand. And again, we're just wanting to get off this little layer of detritus. and just kind of disrupt the sand bed on the top, get some aeration in there, and then move on. Another thing we want to watch out for is any snails. We do have Nasaria snails in here, which are diggers. I can only see two. We only have two in here, and I can actually see both of them right there in the middle, so I don't have to worry about them too much. But again, we're just going through the sand bed real smooth, and then pinching it off and opening it up. So we'll pinch it, get there, let the water suck up a little bit, close it off, and it drops. So I think everyone kind of knows, for the most part, how to actually do the gravel vacuum part, but starting the siphon was always the biggest challenge. I would just suck on the other end of the tube, which is disgusting. And now you don't have to do that. You could just drop the end of the tube into the bucket and then start your gravel vac that way and do a water change super easy. So we're just going to let this drain out. We do about 20 to 25% water changes, which for this tank is like 4-ish gallons. So we're going to let it go here for probably like another 10 seconds, and then we will cut the siphon, and as simple as just pulling out the gravel vac, and you're done. Now that we have our water drained at about 25%, and simply just pour it into the tank. Now we're going to stop it about there because there is a lot of water in the back chamber, and once we turn the system on, we don't want to have too much water in the back. So we'll leave it about there, let the water pump into the tank, and we'll see as the all-in-one chamber drains down. We'll slowly pour more water into there. I'm sure the ATO will kick on for a little bit, but we'll get the level in the back correct. All right, water's pouring in. Now that we've completed our water change, I like to do a couple of things and just check to make sure that everything is working good. So down here in the stand, if we slide you guys down here we have our controller for our power head. So we just want to make sure that that's on. We want to make sure it's set at kind of the correct flow, the correct speed and intensity. So that looks like it's good. Even further down, if we slide you guys even more, we've got the ATO reservoir, so we want to make sure that there's enough water in there, as well as that the pump is sitting at the bottom. We don't want that running dry. It looks like we have enough water in there that should probably last us about another week, week and a half. And then if we slide you guys back up, obviously just put the hand in the tank really quick, make sure that the power head is actually flowing. Sometimes for some reason, if these get kicked in the wrong direction, it'll push water back, so it'll essentially suck water backwards and the flow will be pushing against the glass. So put your hand in, make sure that there's some flow coming outside of that, and then obviously making sure that your return nozzle and everything isn't blocked. A big thing that I do like to look out for is the inlet chambers here, making sure that these slits are not blocked as well, because if they do, you can potentially flood your tank. That's one thing with these all-in-ones. So making sure that you got good flow across the whole tank. Of course, our lights on. And then lastly, we will check in the back here to make sure that our heater is also kicked on. With the Cobalt heaters, they're pretty good, so you don't have to worry about those things. And the last thing, we just wiped down our lid, so let's go ahead. The last thing I'm gonna leave you guys with is my sock method. Get yourself a pair of dress socks. Not Nikes, not, these I think are like a wool type, so maybe not cotton. But a dress pair of socks, for some reason, always works better than like a pair of Nike socks or something like that. This I'm going to use to get off the streaks on the aquarium. So let me show you. And I don't know how I learned this method, but this is such a good way of getting water streaks off of the glass. Like you can get the glass wet with a towel and kind of wipe it all down, let it dry, and then all of those streaks gets taken off with dress socks. I don't know how I came up with it, but that's like my weird little method. Some people might find it gross, but... Hey guys, this is Future Jordan. Before we end the video, I just want to show you the task feature on the Reef Bay app. Since we just completed a water change, we're going to jump into the Reef Bay app. Not only is there a marketplace as well as a feed, but there are tasks that you can set up for each individual tank. We have a nice calendar that shows us week by week and day by day what we need to complete for the tanks. We've got our custom tasks there, like water changes, feeding, dosing. We also have overviews and task reminders, as well as the activity for how often we do these tasks and if we're staying consistent with it. If we go into edit a task, you can see that we can remind ourselves however many days we want. Based on the day, we can change the color, so when we look at our calendar, we know what task is due for that day. Since we just completed a water change, we're going to cross it off. And that is all I've got for you guys today. A nice, simple water change, glass clean, equipment checkup show you guys some tips and tricks. If you guys have any tips of your own that you do when you're conducting water changes, please leave it in the comments down below because I'm always open to optimizing and trying to better these water changes. If you guys did learn something, then like the video. Again, check out the Reef Bay app if you guys want to do some parameter tracking. Check out the feed, check out the marketplace, create yourself an aquarium profile. But with all that being said, we will catch you guys on the next one.